case you didn't know, recording's in progress. If you don't want your face or your name on there, maybe you want to remove them. But if not, if you're happy with that, then let's go. All right, now I'm gonna try what which I think is almost 100% going to be futile, and that is, well, let me share to the desktop first. Share. Okay, so my desktop's being shared, right? Yes, no?
Yep.
Okay. But then how do I share with Zoom? I can't.
See, when you do a screen share, it will show the actual windows that are open, but I think the Zoom control panels never are included in that. So the workaround I've done is logged into the call with a smartphone and used the smartphone to share screen with pointing the smartphone at whatever you want to show us.
Daniel, in the options, when you open Zoom options, there's an option to show your Zoom application while screen sharing.
During the meeting?
Yep. If you show,
where's the options
right now? If I show you my whole desktop, you can see your pictures over here on the right.
Yeah.
Can't you? Because that's I'm showing my option is to show Zoom.
Oh, I never know you could do that. That's a good tip.
Wow. Wait, so that's from the website, you mean?
That's in the preferences.
In the preferences. Okay, hold on.
So if you click on the preferences and then the preference window opens, the fourth one down is share screen. And then you'll find the third option down the box is unchecked.
And what am I looking for here?
Show my Zoom windows to other participants when I'm screen sharing.
Yes.
Cheers for that, Steve. I didn't know that.
All right. All right. You rock, Steve. All right. Now let's see how this goes. But I still have my doubts because I'm going to try to share within a share. This is like, this is getting to the matrix here. Okay. Share desktop. Okay. Okay. Now you can see my Zoom windows. Okay. And then share. And I want to go to advanced. Everyone saw that? Yeah. And then slides as virtual background. Okay, so you want to choose that, and then you want to click share. And I don't know at what point all of this implodes, but here's the file. So you find the Keynote, PowerPoint, whatever file that you want to be your background, and you choose that, and then you click open. And voila. All right. So so you can see me, right? I'm within my slides. Okay. And so that's just how to do it again, right? You have a little bit of control. So for example, the size. So I could make myself quite a bit bigger within my slide, and I can reduce it. I can move it around. All right. What I cannot do is move this box off of the screen, which I would like to do if I could, I guess I could like move over here to do that, right? But if I'm center, I can't just move the box, this like extra part off of the screen. All right. So is everyone clear on how to do this? Yes. Okay.
Daniel, if you have a Google, oh, sorry,
Daniel, if you're wanting just to get yourself off it quickly, so I guess you can just manually like cover your camera and then it would just only show the background, right?
Yeah, that'd be kind of weird. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Just a post-it or something.
I'm not sure because that's
where having something on your camera like that, having a lid you can drop over.
If you had something, a lid ready to go, yeah, I suppose that would work. Yeah, but then I think it would be black, right? This would be a black spot.
Black square.
This would be a black, spot. As
just going to stop video. Yeah.
So if oh yeah. Oh, there we go. That's the solution. Just stop the video.
Does this work with Google Slides as well? Because I see you usually have to select a file from the desktop, which would be Keynote or PowerPoint. But how about Google Slides?
I don't think so. You might have to export the Google Slides and then use that file. So you could create something on Google Slides and then do it.
But not natively in the browser, no.
Apparently not. Apparently not. So hold on here. Whoa, that's not what I wanted. Okay. Okay. So one of the weaknesses here is I've got my. You can control the slides down at the bottom of the screen, left, right. But you don't have your normal controls that you would have within your presentation app, right? Which is something I really like and prefer. All right, and so what I'm doing as my little workaround for this to be able to have a little bit more control is I have my slide deck open, and for me it's on my other monitor. And then, so in this case, I'm using Keynote. So I've got I have the same slide deck running on the side with my phone or other device as the remote control, because then I can see the current slide, next slide, notes, which is something you can't do with it as a background. Does everyone understand what I mean? Right? Okay, because like when you're doing a presentation, when you have your slides, you can also often use you see the notes in front of you on whatever monitor you're using, but that's not going to be available for you if you're just relying on this background. I have no idea what my notes are. I don't know if I remember what the next slide is. Okay, but this is one reason I really like Keynote, is at least on Zoom, is that Keynote will run the slideshow as a window, as opposed to taking over the whole desktop. So it runs, it's in full, it's a full thing, but it's in a window, which I can share, and I can share the screen as. But doing it this way, I can also see my presenter notes on my device. So kind of complicated. The good thing about the new update with Keynote is Keynote now also has a presenter presenter window alongside those slides, which you can see your same thing, your notes, and you can see your upcoming slides. All right. So again, I can adjust this according to whatever size I think is most appropriate. If I really wanted to, I could like make my my phone I could do this off of the phone, and then I could have my entire body be in the slide, right? I could do that portrait mode and see everything. But as it is, this is what we got. Okay, so just a couple of things to note, even here, just from the first slide, is that I did design this particular slide for this purpose, right? Normally, I would probably have this image would be the entire screen or the entire slide, right? But I know that I don't want to be in front of any objects that might be distracting. I don't want to be in front of the title. And so I set this up in this particular way. All right. Now feel free at any time to ask questions with the chat, or if the timing's right, you can interrupt. Okay, so I'm just now looking over here at the chat. Get a few from Sachi, right? Good for checking gestures, good. Okay, so Rabs. Okay. Yeah, Steve said he doesn't use this because of losing the controls. I understand that. Yeah. Okay, and okay. So Brian asked an interesting question. Daniel says he chooses Keynote for exactly the same reason that, was it Rab or Steve who said?
Yeah, me. Yeah. Or maybe.
Yeah. Who is right? Well, there's no right or wrong. It's a preference, right? If you don't like it, don't use it. But if you do, I do think there is a benefit, right, for the kind of personal touch of being right there. It's a little kind of analogous to being in the classroom in front of a screen, especially if you're recording. Right, so it's something to consider. There are drawbacks, so that's good to know that there are drawbacks. And my solution works for me when I do choose to do it this way. You'll see later, if we get to it, I'm going to come out of this and show some slides without being in the slides because those particular slides work better that way. All right. So keep the questions coming.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking not just for me, but if like I were to ask my students to do this for like presentations,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Is it work for like smartphones or tablet devices, or is it only something that you need like a certain kind of spec of a computer, like, to be able to use it?
Good question. I don't know if anyone out there can help me with that one. I have not tried it. I do think it might be doubtful because the number of other features are not able to do with tablets and phones, like breakout rooms, unless they've changed that. So yeah, just have to experiment, I guess. So my suggestion would be maybe set up your own private meeting, turn it on, check it, see if it works. Yeah, that's a good question. Good question. Okay. All right, I'm still on my first slide. No, but it's good. It's good. All right. So, all right, as you know, when we all made the switch to Zoom, or most of us made a switch to Zoom or online, we had to kind of, at first, I think maybe the first few days, we were just kind of putting things aside to make room. But in this case, we're talking about strategic cleanup of our slides because we want to be in them and we want to not overlap with our images necessarily, especially if it's text. All right, so, all right. Okay, so this is my post strategic cleanup. And okay, so here's the problem, right? So, so this is something that has to be considered, and that is, this does not really work well if you have a lot of text or a lot of bullet points, right? As you can see here, I'm over them. You shouldn't be doing it anyway, but in particular, if you're going to be blocking the view of your text, right? Right, so we want to do better. All right, so my suggestion is don't use them. All right, they're dangerous, but it's not always possible. Okay, so there might be a case where you're like just doing a summary. You just want to remind what the points that you already covered, or for some reason there needs to be a list, right? But if you're going through the list, especially one by one, you have to animate them. All right. And actually now I'm showing you an example of one of the drawbacks of doing the background on Zoom is I couldn't animate this slide, which is actually animated in the original, which is fine. All right. But you want to bring up your bullet point actually as you're already beginning to speak about it. It pops up, they draw the attention to it. Okay, so now here's the workaround. Again, I'm not recommending bullets, but if you do need them, all right, so here's what I did. Okay, so normally in Keynote, I would just turn on animation. I would say by bullet, each click brings up the next bullet point. But you can't do that with this as a background slide. It will not go through your animations. All of the bullet points will be on the screen at the same time. So what I had to do is I had to make individual slides as I added each point. So this was point number one, and we'll come back to why crap, but effective visuals crap. And then my second point is you should have white space, plenty of white space, right? And then you should try to apply the rule of thirds if you can, right? And finally, use bleeding if you can. Now, don't worry, if you don't know these terms, we'll come back to them. All I'm trying to point out is that I had to actually make separate slides for each stage of the bullet points. Okay, so keep that in mind, that on the Zoom sharing, it will not do one at a time using your animation tool. All right. Okay, I realize here on the screen, these are not as grayed out as I tried to make them. That's another thing that you ought to do. All right. Any questions at this point? I will come back to what these terms are, because these terms will be useful for us in making our slides.
I have a question. Can we see the animation? Like when you do the animation, are we able to see it like on?
No, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, you can't. Okay.
Yeah. So when you use slides as a background, you can't animate them. It just goes through your slide deck one slide at a time. Right.
How about the transition animations between slides?
No.
Doesn't do those either.
No. Right. So that's why, you have to decide if they're important. Later, I am going to probably use a different slide deck. And in that case, I'm probably just going to use the normal sharing so you can see those slides. All right. Okay. I see those transitions. All right. But anyways, the main point here is if you want to animate items on a slide, you'll have to make a separate slide for each if you're using it as a Zoom background. One other thing to keep in mind here is to do this, in my case, I think the default for Keynote and probably for most software is when you have a bullet point list or bullet list, maybe it depends on the individual template. It often will have it where the bullets are centered top and bottom by default, right? So if you only have one bullet point, it'll be in the middle. If you add another bullet point, then it goes up and there's two in the middle. You know what I'm saying? Right? That's the default on many templates, if not most. You don't want that if you're going to do this. So what I did was I looked through the tools in my software and I had it top aligned, not centered aligned. And then that way, what I did was I made 4 versions of this exact same slide, and I went backward and just removed a bullet point from each until I had 1. Does that make sense?
Yeah. How about if you've got a video on the slide, will it play the video?
I don't think so. I haven't tried that, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't. I think it just does, as a background, it just does slide, 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 slide. Okay, if I'm wrong, please tell me. It is a beta function, so who knows if they keep adding stuff. But I'm just happy that they got to this point right now and hoping for more later. All right. Okay, I don't see any new questions. So, all right. Many of you may have seen this before or are already familiar with it, but let's just go through some design principles and then see how they affect the case of using as background slides on Zoom. Okay. All right, now, probably most of you know, and if you haven't already, do look to get advice from Gar Reynolds. The 3rd edition of the Presentation Zen book is by far the best one because it really incorporates what he's learned and over time, but also he had separate books. He had a Presentation Zen book, which is about, it says here, simple ideas on presentation design delivery. Then he made a specific design book for presentations called Presentation Zen Design. And then he made another one called The Naked Presenter, which is more about the actual delivery. The good thing is about this edition of Presentation Zen is many of those ideas are incorporated into one volume. All right. So I do recommend it.
Has the DVD been updated as well? Because I've got the DVD.
Not that I know of. Not that I know of. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's a very good question. Okay, so the ideas I'm going to share, spend a little bit more time, are from this book, right? The Non-Designer's Design Book. Are you familiar with this? Yeah, it's a great book. This is not just useful for presentation design. This will help you in everything you create. If you create something that people look at, you should have this book, unless you are already a designer, which is why it's called the Non-Designer's Design Book. And she talks about 4 principles, especially focuses on 4 principles of design that conveniently, if you rearrange the order, spells out CRAP as an acronym. And I explain to my students, like, when I'm teaching them this, yeah, CRAP has more than one meaning. Keep that in mind. But one of those meanings is bad design. All right, and so hopefully this acronym helps you remember good design. Now, even if you're familiar with this, let's just try to think about how does this affect our background slides for Zoom. Okay. All right, so the first letter stands for contrast. All right. And the main idea, the main principle of contrast in design is that if you're going to make something different, make it really different, right? Not a little bit different, not where people are wondering, is that different? Oh, I see here I'm over the credit, so I'm gonna move myself. All right, so I ask my students, which of these peas is important? Which of these beans is important, right? And oh, the red one. Oh, how did you know? Okay, so it's make it different. All right, so I have some different ways in which you could do that. You could do it through thickness and thinness. All right, so I'll show an example using text. All right, so here's a boring title slide with nothing. All right, and just start off with thickness. All right, notice that to do this, I made the title thicker at the same time while I was making the rest of it thinner, right? So again, if you're going to make something different, make it really different, right? So you don't have to just make it bold. You can make the other part thin, right? All right, and then the next idea is you could use size to show contrast. All right, so here again, I got the nothing special. I make the top line much bigger. At the same time, it made the other one smaller, all right, thereby increasing the contrast. Of course, you could use color, right? And now this is where I am not the expert on which colors you should use for certain visual abilities, disabilities, and so on. So I might tend to choose the wrong colors because I'm not colorblind and I should become more aware. I admit that. Okay, but yeah, you want high contrast. Yellow and blue are very high contrast, right? All right, so once again, let's look at it with slides. Here I have regular, here I added color, okay? So it's clear I draw attention to what's important. Okay, another idea, at least with text, is using fonts that are very different. All right, so here's normal. Here I use a very different font, right? So no one needs to doubt what was important. And of course, if you're really trying to go for contrast, you would combine all of those together, right? Size, boldness, color, font, all right? And this is just using fonts as an example, but yeah, high contrast, all right? So that's the important part of, oh, here I am in the wrong place. All right, so again, the main point in contrast is if it's different, make it really different. Tell us what's important in your design. Okay, so now I can't immediately think of how that would be unique or special, distinct to Zoom backgrounds, but it's just part of the overall. If you can always stop me if you think of something. All right, but let's go ahead and go on to the next one. Let's get a little bit more relevant, I think. All right, so let's go on to the next one. R is for repetition. All right, so the idea is that in design, you should repeat certain elements throughout your design. Okay, now So, you know, have a theme. All right. So of course the terracotta soldiers and Xi'an, they're
Daniel, you're muted.
yeah, sorry, I got muted. All right, here, sorry about that. Yeah, so the idea is to have in your design is to have something repeated. So they have unique, distinct faces, but the uniform gives away that it's a unit, right? So that's the idea. So many people use templates for that. I'm not a big fan of templates unless you design it yourself. One reason why, this is an example, is it takes up too much of your slide pretty often. So see if you can come up with your own templates. But again, ways to show repetition. Well, one, of course, is color. Okay, so here we don't have repetition. Here I repeated with the color. Okay. Once again, you can do it with size. Okay, so the size is repeated. It shows some kind of unity. You can do it with fonts. Okay, so repeating that. Okay. And of course, you can repeat font, color, size together. All right. Admittedly, showing you these examples by using the same slide is not really, not really how you're going to probably use repetition. You can probably use it from slide to slide, right? But for example, if you use color and font for your labels, you might use that same color and font throughout your presentation. So it shows a kind of unity in your design. But you could also use other items. You could use symbols, images. There's other ways to show repetition. All right, but now we're going to really get to the ones that are relevant, more relevant for our purpose here. Yeah, so the next one is A, is alignment. All right. And so you want to line up things in your design. You want to have a visual connection between the items and elements in your design. And we'll see how this will help us if we're trying to make use of this function. Okay, so, but one reason we need to do this is because, oh, I couldn't animate this, is that if the items are not aligned, I should have removed these. All right, but with these little yellow lines here, you can see how nothing was aligned, right? And if I remove these, I think you would see is, oh, what's going on here? Okay, so instead you want to align them like this. Okay, you can see this visual connection. All right, now, how does that help us? All right, well, let's go back to our, oops. So what can you do for alignment? All right, well, with text, probably the default for most people is centered, okay, but it's pretty lame. Now it's okay if your purpose is formality, centered is fine, it's safe. But really, where is the line? It's like somewhere around here. You can't really see it. So you can make it stand out more if you do something different. All right, let's go back to this idea of the title slide again. Okay, so here it's random. Here it's centered. It is much better, but try something a little bit more daring, right? Try something like this, left alignment. So here you can see the line very clearly, but also here's the part that's relevant to us, is that gives you a lot more room to stretch out, right? Because when you're using alignment, right, it will create this space here, which we call negative space, sometimes called white space. There's multiple reasons for creating negative space, but in this particular case, for backgrounds in Zoom, gives you more space to put yourself. Okay, but it doesn't need to be left aligned. Okay, try right aligned. Yeah, I just move myself over here. Okay, and it's more interesting because it's different. People are not used to seeing right alignment as much. All right, more so these days, I think. Okay. All right. So the idea is experiment, try around, try different alignments, and then find one that works best for what you're doing. You should, as for a Zoom background, you should test these out, see what works best, and then try to know what's coming up so you know where to move yourself if necessary. All right. So we can do it the Steve Jobs way, or we could do it the Yoda way. Oops. All right. Either way is fine. All right. So alignment. Okay. Okay. Rab said there's an app for that. I'm not sure what he was referring to, but
that was for your colorblind thing. So there's an app where you put in the digital colors and it tells you if they're compatible between the color and the background. I'll stick it in the chat.
Okay, great. Yes, excellent. That's a good point, right? Like, so if we do want to be aware of what might affect our audience, it's good to be aware of those things. Thanks, Reb. But also you can find very easily on an app or websites also just about color compatibility from a design point of view, right? You can use a color wheel and learn what colors stick out and such. All right, let's keep this moving. So alignment helped us quite a bit in giving us some negative space for putting ourselves into our slides. And so does the last one, which is proximity. P is for proximity. And of course, the idea is that if there's a relationship in the idea, then actually physically put them together, right? So let's use the example again of my title slides. I'm gonna move myself over. Okay, so here I am. I've got the contrast, I've got the repetition, I've got the alignment, but now I have these 4 different lines. And if I asked you, what's the relationship between them? Okay, all of you are educated. It wouldn't take you long to figure out, but why am I making you work, right? I can show by proximity. I push, the animation would have been much nicer. I push the items that belong together conceptually, I push them physically together. So there is no doubt or need to spend any time wondering why, what relationship they have. But guess what? Guess what else it does? It increases even more this negative space, okay, which again, depending on your purposes, could be a good reason to use it to improve your learner's experience. I want to move myself over again. All right, so this is just adding more contrast. Okay, and this is the title slide for the original presentation from which I made that. Okay, so, okay, quick quiz. You can turn on your mics for this. Quick quiz. You just press down the space bar if you want to do it quickly. What is C? In crop? C, anybody? Go for it, Rab.
Contrast.
Contrast. All right, someone else? R? Anyone? Anyone? Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm in class.
Someone's typed it in the chat.
Okay. Oh, repetition. All right, very good, Eduardo. Thank you. And someone else for A. Oops, I went ahead. A. Someone else?
Alignment.
Alignment. Very good. Yeah. And then P.
Proximity.
Proximity. Very good. All right. Thanks, everybody. All right. So again, especially these last two, alignment and proximity, are particularly useful for if you want to put yourself in your slides, gives you a space to be without interrupting or distracting from what you're doing. Okay. So let's see. Okay. I'm going to stop this particular slideshow or this particular share. All right. And Brian has a question, I think. So go for it.
Yeah. So all of that works great when you're trying to project a very simple concept, you know, like one at a time.
Certainly.
When it gets a bit more complicated, or if you're doing something a bit complex that has more information,
Yeah.
Any ideas on what you can do, or is there anything you do, or you have to grind and bear it?
Yeah, that's a good issue. I think what I didn't know to say, which I now know to say, is you might just stop the video so that your camera is no longer on, and then everyone can see the full slide without you interrupting. Yeah, that's a good question. I didn't know that. Now my tendency though is, except for like if I had like a map or some kind of complex image, other than that, I try not to have too many things on the screen. I go for simplicity. I think that's preferable when possible, but it's not, right? So that's a good question. So yeah, now we figured it out. Just stop your video during that slide and let them look. All right, very good. Any other questions, comments? Your participation is welcome.
Hi, this is Arnold Fisher.
Okay, Arnold.
Very interesting.
Thank you.
I had it on speaker view in Zoom,
Oh,
which meant I could see you in the slide,
yeah,
but also a little box over to the right where I saw your image again.
Sure.
Is there any way to eliminate that unnecessary image on the side?
Oh, that's a good question. Can anyone help?
Are you watching this on one laptop screen, Arnold?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
So what happens on Zoom then if someone is sharing their screen? This is my point earlier on, and you're only watching it on one screen, all the faces of all the people who are in attendance get squeezed down into one little narrow strip.
Yeah.
If you've got it in presenter view, it's just going to have that one person as a second thing. I mean, you can change it so you can see like 4 or 5 people there, but that's always going to be kind of floating on top of what you're doing on the screen.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So Arnold, your question is mostly for as a viewer, right?
Yeah, it was a little bit disconcerting. I'm looking at you in 2 different places.
I see. I can understand. I can understand. Yeah, it's funny because that's actually a good point. I'm glad you asked the question, because I always just assume that the students are getting the same experience that I'm getting, right? Because I always have at least 2 monitors. Like my computer has 2 monitors. My students likely don't, right? And then I've also often have my, I'm also logged in often with another account, like on my tablet or on my phone. And so I can see their view a little bit, right? I can get an idea of what they're seeing. But that's a good point.
And I did want to mention, one of the other participants mentioned earlier, this is good for when students are making presentations. You can actually see their body gestures, at least the upper half of them, which will be very helpful.
That is a good point.
I've had to evaluate students, and I have to look in this window, and I'm trying to see what they're doing, and basically they're looking down at their laptop reading their script.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So they can't hide if they're doing this, right? Yeah, it's a good point.
Make it more interesting as well.
Yes.
But they would have to spend some time redesigning their slides like you have and learn how to use it. But I think it could be an effective learning tool for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, I'm always in favor of raising the challenge level if it's not too high, right? So, well, they'll have to practice more. Oh, they'll have to spend more time on the design. Oh no, no, that's good, right? Because then they're thinking about it, they're planning, they're practicing. Those are all good things, right? So desirable.
Exactly. Thank you.
All right. I do have more to go to if desired. But if someone had wanted to ask another question or another comment, we could do that. No. All right. All right. This time I am not going to put myself in the slides because I want you to see my animation, at least when I have it. Okay. Now it is on Zoom, so the animation is not always as nice as it would look on a projector, but bear with it. Okay. All right, there'll be some overlap, but hopefully you'll find it useful. All right. Okay, so let me try next. All right. Okay, so let's also think about images a bit. All right, so here we have an image. This is from NASA. It's a very cool photo. But I'm going to show you another version of the same photo and ask you which one do you think, which one do you like better? Okay, so this is the first version, version 1. Here comes version 2. All right, what do you think? Which one do you like better, 1 or 2? All right, Rav has 2 of, Brian has 2 of. You can type in the chat. Yoko wrote 2 in the chat. Microphones, chat, anything's fine. Anyone else? 2, Honorable 2. Wow, I got 2, 2, 2. Yeah, I agree with you. Why? Why is it more interesting? Well,
it emphasizes the
yes,
vastness of the space.
Yes. I think that's the #1 answer, right? You know, where's this person going? How far are they going? Are they disconnected with anything? And is there any end to their journey? You know, momentum in space. Yeah, so it's intriguing. All right, but the other good part of it is it creates that negative space we talked about before. All right. So again, often called white space, which I think is actually not the best way to call it. The reason it's called white space often is because if it's on paper, the background is white. So people say white space, but negative space is the more accurate term used from art, and photographers especially like to talk about it too. All right, so let's look at an example. Here we have this nice photo from iStock. Looks beautiful, but here we are, we create some negative space. Then perhaps you might, not necessarily, might want to put a message there, but at least you have a place to put it, right? So I can put with high contrast in the negative space. All right, the next idea is the rule of thirds. I know Rab knows this, probably many of you know this, the rule of thirds. This is also used in art, especially if you look at classics, right? You look at classic paintings, photographs, right? So here's the idea. So again, another photo from iStock photo. All right, so here we have the subject centered. All right, it's not bad. I mean, you know, good job with the photographer getting the right aperture and focus and all that, but it's not that interesting, is it? I think it's probably a little bit more interesting if we put the subject on a thirds, one of the thirds, right? So that means the point of focus of what you want the focus to be should probably be on, you know, top or bottom third, or left or right third, or a combination of those. Okay, so it adds interest. Go look at any old famous painting. You're likely to see this. But what I just showed you is, it was a big enough photo that I could move it left and right. And I could manually put it where I wanted it. Okay, so to do that, I would need a high enough resolution photo that allows me to place things. Okay, but here, I'm gonna fix this problem by actually zooming in and then placing it. Okay, so the other one I just moved left, right. This one I zoomed in. Okay, and now she's on the thirds. Okay, so important point to keep in mind if you're going to do this is you want to get higher resolution photos. And if you need to move them around or adjust them at all, they need to be higher resolution than your slides, right? Because that way, if you zoom in or zoom out or any of those things, you'll still have that high resolution on your slide later. All right. Any questions or thoughts there?
Yes.
So,
Can I
yes,
ask what?
sure.
How would you prioritize? Because in this second one,
Yeah.
you kind of reduced the negative space. So I'm just wondering, how would you prioritize?
That's a great point. Yeah, it was for the point of illustration. So yeah, you have to factor all of that in. You always have to factor it in, but also if you're trying to take advantage of these things for the zoom background effect, it requires another level of planning and consideration. But that's a great point. Yeah, I just use this for illustrative purposes. So yeah, thank you. Yeah. All right. I don't see anything in the chat. All right. Okay. Another thing you want to try to do is let your images bleed. All right. So if you're not familiar with this, so bleeding, I believe this originates with photography. So back in the old days when we went to the darkroom to develop our photographs, right? We would project, through the film, we project an image onto the paper, which is in the chemicals, but you would want the image to go past where your borders are. You would not, like, the worst thing would be to have some white at the edge of your photo, right? So you would have a frame where your image is bleeding over that. That's why it's called bleeding, all right? And so in other words, in terms of slides, all we really need to do is make sure that you fill the screen, you fill the slide most of the time. Okay, there are times when you don't want to, but I don't like it, especially when images are randomly sized, right? And you get this weird frame effect around the photo or multiple photos. The important thing is to be deliberate. You should have a reason for not bleeding. Okay, so you don't have to bleed, but you should have a good reason why you're not. All right, so let's look at how it affects the images. I'm planning to open a burger shop, right? And the feature item in my burger shop is going to be the Mega Burger. I stole this from Gar Reynolds. I'm saying it right up front. Okay, but the Mega Burger, all right, that's the primary menu item. All right, and so I made an image to promote my Mega Burger. So I want to see what you think of it. All right, here we go. Oh, you all seem underwhelmed. Why is that? All right, because it's lame. That's why. All right, but let's use bleeding. And now, what do you think of my burger? Yeah, looks pretty good. Yeah,
Lunchtime.
Yeah, make me full, right? Well, it's the exact same image. It's the exact same image, but all I did was resize it and make it go off the screen. All right, so your brain is just naturally filling in the rest of that burger, and it's huge, right? So you're really, really ready for it. Just to point out also, which you can see for yourselves, right, is that I got this color from the tomatoes, right? So try to use your color tools that's also part of your design. All right, now here's a typical image on a slide, right? Just randomly placed there. Even the frame is not balanced. All right, so too often we see this. All right, instead, bleed your images. Fill that screen. Wow, which has more impact? Right, the second, clearly, right? So full-size images have more impact, which should be the point of images. Now, once again, I think this is going to go back to a question Sachi asked earlier. How do you prioritize? Like, if I was in the screen, where would I be? If I was using it as a Zoom background, I'm not sure, right? So I might have to make adjustments according to that. Okay. Now, someone come along and say, "Oh, okay, I get it. I've got my small image, and I should, Daniel says bleed. All right, so I'm going to make this image bleed." What do you think? It's terrible, right? You can actually see the pixels, right? So again, very key issue is that you need to make sure that you have enough resolution, especially if you need to zoom or enlarge. Okay. Now, for most projectors and most slides, this would be your resolution for it, but it changes if you're using widescreen or if you're using 4K or something like that. But most people don't. So I think this number is a good number to use. All right, let's see. Yeah, I think that's it for this one. Okay, and we're back. Steve looks a little bit dry. Yeah, it does look a little bit dry. All right, very good. All right, so questions, comments, feedback, thoughts?
Daniel, do you use a number of like SVGs in your slides?
A number of what?
Like scalable vector graphics.
Only occasionally. Only occasionally. I tend to use mostly photos, and I try to get high resolution to start. Right.
So that means your file's very big because you've got a lot of data in it.
Yeah, so for that very reason, when I get a new computer, I always try to get the highest configuration of disk size. Yeah, but yeah, that is an issue and should be considered. If you're concerned about it, one thing you could do is you could get your large image, figure out what the size that you want is in a photo editing application, make it to that size that you want, and then just delete the original, right? So that, I mean, if that's what you need to do for size sake, it's something you could do.
A lot of these days, I'm using Windows OS, so I'm using the snipping tool, and it makes things a lot easier for me. Just instead of going for full data, but yeah. Right, okay, cheers.
Yeah. So I guess the important thing is just there's different ways to make it work, but what you want to do is you want to make sure you're not having a resolution smaller than the resolution of your slide, right? That's where you get in danger. And then forgetting that you're zooming in or expanding, and then forgetting that, oh, actually that was the native resolution of that slide. So keep those things in mind. All right. So how do you get, if you're going to use images, how do you get your images?
Wikimedia.
Okay. All right. So those are usually Creative Commons licensed. Yeah.
CC Search.
CC Search. Okay. Also Creative
Free
Commons.
Picks.
Yeah. What was that one?
Free Picks.
Free Picks. Okay. I don't know that one, but yeah. Okay, cool.
Harvard University Law School Library has got a web page that lists all sorts of resources for audio, video, music, and it breaks them down between public domain, CC0, and Creative Commons ones. And it's a really, really good resource page.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah.
I'll see if I can find it and I'll stick it in the links.
Yeah, that'd be great. Oh, thanks. Thanks, Catherine. Kat. I have a few. Okay, well, first of all, the number one answer is take your own photos. Of course, it's not always possible, right? But I always tell my students this, look, take photos, take lots of photos, and try to find some way to catalog them and use them when you can. You always have the right to your own photos, your own images. Also, if you're using a smartphone, any modern smartphone, they're really high resolution, at least much higher than your slides, right? So then you can even zoom in and crop and all that kind of stuff. So I always recommend that to my students. One, try to use them in your own presentation, but also make a habit of collecting photos that you might use in the future. For the very same reason, I say, if you're taking photos that you might use for slides, include more of the background than you would, right? You can always crop, right? But you can't always, get the rest of that stuff. So, right, stand back a little bit, add a little bit more. Brian put Unsplash in there. Yeah, Unsplash is great. I also like Pexels, Pixabay. Those are also really excellent sites. I believe all three do not require attribution, but you should anyway. You should anyway. But they actually have it on their site saying their licenses, like you can just use them, right? But I think it's best always to give credit to the photographer and show where you got them. So when I'm going to make a master slide deck from today. I'm putting together the different parts, and at the end, I'll have slides that have a little thumbnail version of the photo with the link and the credit to the photographer. You could do that too in your slides, especially if you're going to share them, right? For the slides that as I'm presenting them, I usually just put a little attribution to the author or to the photographer. Not, I don't put the links in my slides, but I think it's a good idea to put them at the end of the slide deck, right? That way people know where it's from. They could even look it up if they wanted to. Okay. But anyways, yes. Yes, Steve, I will do that. Yes, I'm gonna upload. Like I said, I'll make a master slide deck, right? And it'll have all the attributions there as well. Okay, yeah. So number one answer, take your own, but that's not always possible, right? You know, you say present on another country, and here we are in a pandemic, and someone wants to present on Singapore. They're gonna have to get their images somewhere other than their camera, right? But when possible, yeah, use your camera. Then go to these sites that have Creative Commons licenses, or these ones like Unsplash, Pexels, Pixabay. And even though they say you don't need to attribute anyway, then you're good to go. All right. Well, that's all the content I have, but I'm open for discussion and questions and thoughts and all that.
Hi, Daniel. I don't know if you got my message earlier. I'm having computer and connection problems. I missed the first part of your presentation. I'm really interested in knowing how you put yourself on screen with the the PowerPoint behind you. Are you putting this on YouTube after?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah, it'll be on YouTube. I can just quickly give you just a run through. All right, so eventually you're gonna get to where you open the file for your slides. So you want to know where those are, and then you click on Share Screen, and you'll go to Advanced. Right, so there's like a tab at the top says Advanced. Right. Then on the top left, you'll see a blue box that says use slides as virtual background. And I believe it's blue and it says beta on there. You click on that and then open, and then it will open your slides and you will be in it. Okay, there'll be a small version you on the bottom right, but you are able to move yourself around the screen and you're able to resize. Does that help?
Easy peasy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So try it out. You can always do your own private meeting and then just try out the functions, and yeah.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming.
Daniel, can I ask a question that's maybe the answer is difficult? So okay. I love the idea of the background and being able to stand in front or be in front. A number of years ago, I watched a presentation with somebody from MIT, and actually there was an Xbox Connect camera where they could layer 3 layers. So background, the foreground, the background, the person, and then the foreground. So the kind of scenario of like, oh, you're going shopping. So you can kind of like go into, so I know you were talking about drama before. So is there any way you can get more than 2 layers? Can you overlay?
Oh, in Zoom? Yeah, I don't know that you can. Yeah.
Or any other?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
OBS is...
I'm not sure, but you can send a feature request to Zoom. They're pretty good, right? They're pretty good at responding to what people want, and they've realized this year that, wow, education, there's a great market for us there. So I think they've done a pretty decent job of trying to keep things updated. So that's interesting. I don't know of any solution. So.
Okay, cool, thanks.
But actually that reminds me of something else. So this is tangential. So we talked before about bullet points, avoiding bullet points. So that brings back to another kind of key principle in design is for slide decks, try to keep it to one slide is one idea, right? So for example, I'm gonna go through these 5 points. Well, why do they have to all be on the screen at the same time? Can't you just say, okay, this is point 1, and you show your slide for that point. And then slide 2, show for that point, right? So again, I think there are cases where lists are useful, but I think it definitely tends to be overused. All right, so if possible, one slide, one idea. Yeah. Any other questions, thoughts right now?
Daniel, I guess in lines with what you just said there, I think you have to keep the number on your list manageable by your brain, you know, from your viewer's brain. If you have a lot of things on the list, sometimes we show the whole list so that people don't forget what's coming before and after. And of course, I guess if the main point is that you shouldn't have too much information in your presentation, especially if it's shorter, right? Because the people shouldn't have to keep track of what's coming and what's already gone.
That's right. I highly recommend this book, Multimedia Learning, right? And this is a lot of what's in the book is very relevant to slides, right? And it's also very academic, right? And so it just looks and says, well, if people can't read and then be narrated to and give attention to both, right? And so either you're going to give attention to what's being narrated, or you're going to give attention to the text, the written text, or I think more likely you're going to sit somewhere in the middle and go and get bored, right? So yeah, I think there are cases to have lists again, right? For example, you put up a list of 10 things and you say, okay, I want you to choose from this list. All right, well, that's a case where maybe the list is fine, right? And then maybe you put your stop video and, you know, and they're looking over the list and deciding. But if you're talking about the list one by one, it is ineffective, especially if you have them all up there, right? Because guess what? The learners or the viewers are going to be reading something else other than what you're talking about, and probably not listening to you, right? So.
Yeah, that's a case for not reading and speaking at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, don't read your slides, just put it up there and let people read and be quiet.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah. So it depends on the case, but yeah, in general, can't handle both channels working at the same time. So one of the things in the book by Mayer is that the slide image and then the text on the slide are both those are both visual, right? So you got your input coming in visually, and then someone's narrating and it's coming in audibly. Now that you can handle that, you can handle visual and audio, right? That's why we have narration for like a movie or something like that. But what its problem is that when it's text occupies both channels, because it's coming in through your eyes, but you are making it audio. Yeah, I see it. Thanks, Sachi. You are making it audio, and then you're hearing a narration at the same time. All right, and then it's all competing and confusing. Yeah. All right, so I think we need to move to the wrap up here. All right, so the important thing, I guess the key point of all this is you got to plan. All right, you got to plan and try it out, see what works best for you, but try to use a lot of these visual principles will help you to take advantage of this possibility of having yourself be inside of your slides. And so you have to decide also, is that what I want? Is that what's best? And as we learned here today, even I didn't figure this out. There may be points that during the slide deck where you go, my face should not be here. I click stop video for a while and just let them look at the slide. Yeah, so those are all possibilities. Okay. Okay, I just put my email in the chat, and I will be following whatever protocols there are for making my video available. And I also will make a version of the slide deck available. What I'll do is I'll make a master version. I'm going to put it up on SlideShare, and then I'll share that to the resources. All right, so you won't get a full version of the slides, but you're not supposed to have a full version of the slides. So.
All right, if I could put in a advertisement for the lounge, if I don't know how well this message is being spread around, but if you want to go to the lounge and spill over after the talk, you can do that, and we'll set up a breakout room for you. So just to let you know.
All right, thanks, Brian, and thanks, Susan, for your
Daniel.
Comment there. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Sachi, for being an excellent host. And I appreciate all the questions and the comments and the interest, and I learned something. So I'm really happy about that. I won't be able to join anyone in the lounge right now because I have class. So I front loaded my class with individual tasks, independent tasks. That's the word I wanted. And then now I have to get back to them after take like a 5-minute break. So again, thanks everybody. Really appreciate it. And my email is there, so feel free. Thanks, Arnold. Feel free to inquire more if you like. And I will be around the conference after class is done. All right, let's call it a wrap.
Thank you.
I'm gonna turn off the recording.